Christina.
Let's vote right.
Here.
Joe Zach,
Here.
David McDowell,
Here.
Bridget McCandless,
Here.
Sherry Tyndall,
Here.
Anthony Jeremita.
Here.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the February 24th meeting. If everybody's had a chance to look at those, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Is that motion to approve? Thank you. And we've got a second. So you want to call roll again, please?
Let's vote right.
Yes.
Joe Zach,
Yes.
David McDowell,
Yes.
Bridget McCandless,
Yes.
Sherry Tyndall,
Yes.
Anthony Jeremita.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Action items, the only item we've got there is nomination and voting of new chairperson. At our last meeting, our existing chairperson resigned, and me being the acting vice chair. That's why I'm running this meeting. So we're opening up for nominations.
I'd like to propose Les Boatwright as the new chair of the PUAB.
Second.
Any other nominations? I know who to get back at. Okay, then we'll close the nominations on that. I know by the minutes, I think it said there was, if we only had one candidate, do we still need to vote?
Yeah. Yes.
We do? Okay. All right, you want to call roll, please?
Let's vote right.
Yes.
Joe Zach,
Yes.
David McDowell,
Yes.
Bridget McCandless,
Yes.
Sherry Tyndall,
Yes.
Anthony Jeremita.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we need I guess a new vice chair.
Yes.
This one talks about voting for the new chairperson, but we need a vice chair, chairman of vice. Take that either way. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Anthony Jeremita.
Second.
And we'll make sure Anthony's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. That was
a
an
reluctant,
enthusiastic, yeah. Okay, any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the roll, please.
Let's vote right.
Yes.
Joe Zach,
Yes.
David McDowell,
Yes.
Bridget McCandless,
Yes.
Sherry Tyndall,
Yes.
Anthony Jeremita.
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations, Anthony.
Thank you.
There are paybacks down the right. Down the road. Okay, now we're down to the section on reports, finance and admin. Any questions on the utility financial reports from January?
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to make a couple observations.
Perfect.
I think in the first of all, Brian Kidney, the Director of Finance Administration. I know Cindy usually gives these presentations, but she is headed north to go spend some time with her grandchildren, so she's very excited. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come over because I want to see everyone wearing green. So looking at January, and I've noticed she's been saying quite a bit. It's like a repeat from the previous month that everything's online or in line. Very similar to that, the revenues, I'm going to start with power and light. The revenues are right at where we were expecting on the budget side of things. I will note that under capital projects, and I'll say this for all three utilities, that capital projects are running a little behind on construction, on the cost of those. I think a lot of that is just getting up and running again post COVID, and also I do know that there are some big projects coming up. I'm sure the utility directors will talk about those individually. So, but you will see those expenditures are actually a little bit behind compared to budget. Of course, we're going into the construction season right now, so we would anticipate those getting picked back up. Also of note, this last PUAB meeting, we did a presentation on the fund balances, an update. These January reports have the old balances on there. The February reports will have the new balances on there, but I can just quickly kind of mention. So on the electric fund, when you're seeing the target reserve level of 67 million, that target reserve level is now 52 million. So the fund balance is looks a lot more in line with where the the targets are. And if you remember, the targets were changed because of we feel there's less risk involved with power line. And all three utilities actually for capital reserve risk, expense risk, and then also there's some adjustments in the CIP that changes that working capital line. So I just want to make that aware. When you see these fund balances, these are higher reserves for those risks than this next month you'll see. I think, again, I could say the same thing for all three utilities. The revenue is above where we would expect, but again, we're just hitting those the time that people will start actually water their lawns and stuff. So we actually see that anticipating to go up and water. And then in wastewater is actually expenditures. Not only is revenue just right where we are, but the expenditures are running a little bit lower than expected. And I think that has some personnel filling unfilled positions type things that's really pushing that. But other than that, I don't have any really other things to really point out, but I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions? I do have one. You mentioned the capital projects, and I know with costs going up, fuels going up, everything. Is it periodically through the year as we're doing these capital projects and we're getting bids in, if they come in higher than anticipated, are we looking at those and going, well, maybe we put that one off?
I'll say in a big picture, not necessarily, but I would probably ask each of the utilities. I think they have, and they're shaking their heads, they have their own method. Each one of the industries kind of have their own separate supply type thing. I know we've recently talked to electric because we're working on the debt issuance coming up, and so that question's being asked from potential investors. We feel that we've adjusted probably for the 22 budget because we were anticipating already coming out of COVID that costs were going to be higher. And I imagine when you see the 23 budgets, they are going to be higher. Still, that does not, I think the bigger question is the delay in the shipping and the delay of, instead of something used to take 1 month to get, it might be 3, 4, 5 months to get. And so it's more of the unknown. And so I think you'll see, and again, this is citywide. I can't talk specifically.
Well,
So-
I'm just really talking citywide, not.
Okay, so you'll see the bidders actually having, extra, like a factor in there, a cost factor. So a lot of things are bid based on, well, what will the supply be when it's actually, or what will the cost be when it's actually supplied? So that's just something that we have to take into account when we're budgeting these things, and put plenty of, I shouldn't say padding, but plenty of contingencies. There you go. Thank you. It always takes someone from
It
utilities
takes
to
the
remind me of
sting out
that.
of it when you
term.
say it that way. I was going to
So-
say the methods. Yours is dice, Ouija board, figure 8 ball. Which you showed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did that end?
that did.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for the finance reports? Okay, how about municipal services?
Other than if you have additional questions on financials, I don't have anything as a formal report. I did want to let everybody know, our annual household hazardous waste event is 2 weeks from this Saturday. So if you have anything, you need to bring up, we will be at the parking lot up off the square, from 9 to 2. So hope to see everyone there. And then we always, of course, report back to the board on how much was collected.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, any questions for municipal services? Okay, thank you. Wada?
I just want to give you an update on the Gudgel main replacement project. The contractors installed about 1,000 feet of the 4,200 feet. And as weather permits, they're putting in the driveways and the sidewalks back because we've had the snow and all that. It's been pretty amazing how much work they've done while it's been what I call bad weather anyway. But also, I know the project's going well because yesterday they come dragging in baked goods from people that live out there. I've never seen that in my life. So like 2 or 3 of them are sending them baked goods. Some really good stuff isn't making it in though. So I think like an apple pie or whatever it was. But anyway, I know that things are going well out there. That means the contractor's doing a good job and everything's on time and good. Some other projects will be going in Monday night. Truman Road main replacement project. That's 1,300 feet of main on Powell Road from M78. So right there by the power plant, we've had in front of Barber Concrete. There's an area there that we're replacing some mains. We had some issues there. That's $500,000. We'll be doing Salisbury Road main replacement project. I kind of got that in late, and that may or may not be on there Monday night. I'll look at Adam. He's giving me the high sign. That's a good sign. But that's 2,800 feet. We've had 9 main breaks in the last 10 years there. So I just want to keep reinforcing that we're going forward with these projects. But to answer your question, especially on like that, the one with the Salisbury Road, we had budgeted $550,000. It came in like $1 million. So $543,000 that we'll be bringing out of that reserve fund that we have available to us. So it's fortunate the water fund is in a shape, I guess it's good news, bad news. Like Lisa was saying, if we haven't been doing it, that's why we have the money. But if we're working towards getting these projects done, then we have the money to spend. So we appreciate having that money available to pick that up so we don't have to delay the project. So that's my update. And if anybody else has any questions of.
If you could take the baked goods, you get over on the Gudgel project and have a bake sale.
Well, we could.
That Gudgel Street project, remind me, how long is that overall? You said they've done about 1,000 feet.
Yeah, so it's 4,200 feet. And they're working from, they told me that, what was it? I have to go back and look, but they're working from Kings Highway back the other direction. So, and they've done the creek crossing, which was a big deal. So that's project's really going well considering, where it is and what we're doing. So we'll be seeing a lot more of that, and we'll post photos and stuff. I know Meg and Melissa, you send in photos, and they keep that up to date. So on social media that people know what's going on. So
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for water?
Mr. Chairman, Dan, great update on that stuff. I recently heard from one of your lab people, who's a friend of mine, that they're looking for homes of certain ages to test copper and lead. Can you go into that a little bit?
correct. So the state's changed some rules on what and I can't off the top of my head, I apologize that I don't know the year of that, but what we're doing is going out and finding those subdivisions because we don't know that we have like lead. We know we don't have lead mains. There might be a lead gooseneck somewhere in the system. But so what we have to do is go out and find homes that were built in a time where they could have still had lead in the solder when they did the copper line. So, and even though I guess the good news is we never test and we never find lead in our drinking water because our water is slightly depositing. It has a Langmuir index that causes the water to slightly have a deposit on the inside of the pipes, which probably wouldn't be good for your heart if you were a doctor or that type of thing. But as far as the pipe goes, then as long as we don't have an aggressive water that sucks the lead out of the mains, then that's when you get into an issue. And that's what happened in Michigan. Ours is slightly depositing, so we've never had that experience. It's got like a coating on it, and we never test for it. We test for it all the time, but we don't test positive for lead. So it's not in the water to start with, but it could be in the solder or something like that. But over time, I don't know if anybody's had plumbing and ever cut into something, you'll see that it'll, like your hot water tank, that's usually why they go, is because they've got a coating on the inside of them. So that type of thing. But the answer to your question is I don't know the exact year, but what we're doing is going out and finding those homes during that period of time. So we'll be contacting customers that live in those areas and be asking for if they would mind letting us grab a sample. But thanks for bringing that to our attention.
We can spread the news.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from water? Okay, next item is IPL.
Well, first off, to start with, on the capital projects, you're correct. There have been significant increases in material costs, labor costs. There's materials that we simply can't get at the moment. We're having trouble even getting things as simple as utility poles. So there are projects that are having to be delayed. There are some where because of labor costs, if we had maybe originally planned on having that contracted out, we're pulling it back in-house and then delaying the schedule so that our staff can get to it instead. But work is continuing. One of our big projects has been the Substation K Rebuild. That's the one north of Coles on 39 off of 39th Street. We are energizing the new circuits, doing a very thorough testing of all the relays and switching equipment in there. And then there'll be some more transferring from the old section of the substation to the new, and then connecting that up to everything on down to 39th Street and out along that corridor. So that's going very well. It's just been a much longer project than what was originally envisioned because of COVID and the other delays. We do have things in the capital budget that I guess you could call them contingency funds, things where we know that there's going to be things in the transmission system, things in our distribution or substations where expenses will come up. And so we have funds there that if we have an overrun on one area, we can look at where we can borrow money or switch money from one item to another, and then once we identify those, we send them up for council approval so we can adjust that funding without having to ask for more money. The items I have for you on the agenda here today, one is the update on the letter of intent for new generation. The council did approve it, so we've been moving forward with Pro Energy. I think staff had 2 pages of questions of different items to clarify. I mean, how high does the stack height need to be? What sound dampening may we need? Things that are in addition to the bid as proposed, or details that we need to finalize with them in order to get to that final price for their offer. Legal is reviewing the contract, so that's in progress. And then we still need to work with Brian on putting together what the construction loan, bonding, what that all is going to look like, so that we'll have that to present to the council when it's time for the actual purchase order to be approved. In preparation for that, we had a tour. Les and Anthony went with me and the mayor as well, and we went out to Pro Energy in Sedalia and took a tour of their facility. It is very impressive. It is a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility, and you would be hard-pressed to call what comes out of there repurposed it is. I mean, it is very much a like-new product coming off the end of their line. And we will be working on setting up some more of those tours. As we get some dates available, we will push those out to y'all, and you're certainly invited to take advantage of that as well. Don't have a date for another one yet. We're targeting April 1st, but still trying to work the logistics of that.
I would like to jump in and say thanks for including us in that. I know I'd mentioned to you about getting a couple of more of the PUAB at the next tour you do. So if anybody's got time to do it, it is well worth going to see the technology that's there. I mean, that campus is a lot larger than I expected it to be. When they say campus, sometimes it's one big building, but this was several big buildings spread over a big area. And just the cleanliness and the technology and just the people that they employ there was pretty impressive. So I talked to the mayor about it afterwards, and her statement was, well, if this is the option we go with, this is definitely who we need to buy them from, just because of what we saw there that day. And it was truly impressive, and I appreciate you giving us the chance to do that.
They even have a 3D printer that can print metal alloy parts. Parts that they've not been able to procure on the outside. They've got the design, measured all the specs, and just made it themselves. And it's a pretty impressive setup.
Well, that 3D printer was the size of the front of a Greyhound bus. I mean, Anthony's got a picture of it. That thing was incredible, how big it was. It just to produce even those small parts. And
it can print stuff so large that the printer cracks open like a V, and they can lift stuff out of it with a crane.
Yeah,
the parts are so large. But they didn't say they print stuff that big. Most of the stuff that they print are, so big.
I think it's new enough to them right now that's what they started with. But
Yeah.
I can see they were already on their screen. They had drawings of something a lot much larger that they were playing with. So.
But again, we will be setting up some more visits out there. I know it's very, very interesting, very impressive once you get a chance to see it. The other item there, After the city council meeting, I talked to our Parks and Rec director and Adam and Zach, and we have arranged to have the IPL will host a town hall style meeting on March 31st at the Truman Memorial Building. We are inviting the Pro Energy, the manufacturer, as well as our engineering consultant, Power Engineers. And as yesterday, I confirmed the president of the Missouri Public Utility Alliance, John Twitty, has agreed to come in and be our MC / moderator for the event. The format will be, we'll have some display tables set up around the room. 5:30 in the afternoon, people will be able to come in, browse. There'll be baskets with cards and pins. They can write down the questions that they have. We'll collect those up. Approximately 6 o'clock, I'll introduce the participants. We'll let them do a quick intro of who they are and why they're there, and then we'll launch into answering the questions and get through as many of the questions as we can in the time we have allowed. So I think it'll be a good evening. It'll be a good opportunity for all the citizens that are interested to come in and to meet the different participants and to get a lot of information and understand better what it is we're proposing.
Question. So the intent of the discussion is just to make a presentation on what you've already chosen. Is that correct?
Well, it's not so much a presentation as Q&A. We will answer their questions, and we'll have information about all the different options that we looked at, all some of the different possibilities that the city had in front of it, and then present, like I said, the experts that we will have there to answer whatever questions that the public asks.
And will they be able to ask questions about options that you haven't chosen or hadn't considered?
I'm sure they could ask. I mean, we're going to focus it on, how we arrived at that decision, and the examination of those other options is certainly part of how we came to this decision. There's been a perception out there that Power and Light just picked this and decided this is what we're going with. That's absolutely not how this happened. That doesn't even remotely describe how this process took place. Over the last 2 years, we have engaged a number of different consultants. We've looked at a lot of different scenarios, starting all the way back at the Energy Master Plan in 2019 and moving forward. And, we have looked at what would it look like for more wind, more solar, the battery technology, is it mature enough? What would it look like if we abandoned generation altogether and just went with purchase power and capacity contracts? All of those options have been on the table, and all of those options have been reviewed, and they've been discussed at multiple presentations. So the perception out there among some that Power and Light just picked this couldn't be further from the truth.
And will you present on those other options that you considered, like fully purchasing?
Well, we will have an information packet available that will have some of that information in it. If we receive questions as part of the evening, we'll address some of those as we can. I don't think we'll be, with the time constraint, we're not going to rehash 2 years worth of presentations, but we will address the questions that we get.
Could we make a request that you at least do an overview on those other things that you considered and pros and cons and why you made the choice you did to come down the pathway?
Sure.
I think that would go a long way to helping people who haven't been following the discussion. They're showing up at the end of the sentence, right. And I think that makes it a lot harder to swallow that size of a purchase without understanding why you ruled out other options.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure there will be some people that haven't paid attention to this until you start talking about spending so many millions of dollars. Then they're obviously going to be interested. So I think some of that background would be beneficial. Okay, thank you. Anything else from IPL?
Yes.
I'll go with David and then.
What was just discussed, I don't mean that. I talk loud. Jim, could you just email that out? Send me a copy of what Bridget has asked for, because I would like to see that as well. I've had so many people come to me and say, why don't we just expand our current contracts with our current providers? Which to me makes more sense. But then again, if you've already gone over this for the last 2 years, which I didn't ever see, I'd like to see how you came to your conclusions.
Well, and just to give you some quick examples, our purchase power agreement with Iatan and Nebraska City, those are, I think, 50 and 54 megawatts each. Right now, our annual cost to, I think it's Iatan, is over $9 million a year. The other one, or I think $9 million for Nebraska City and $13 million for the Iatan 2 project. That's for the two of those combined. So we're talking close to over $20 million a year for 100 megawatts. We're proposing 70 million purchase price for 84. So the cost is half of what we're currently spending on the existing options.
But the 70 million is just the machinery. That's not the staff and the gas.
Well, we're not talking about adding staff. We think the existing staff will be able to manage this without adding personnel. But you're right, operating costs do go in there as well. But just the scope of that 70 million purchase price, the bonding, and we were estimating a estimated debt service of 4.5 million. So 4.5 million for debt service compared to 9 million for half the megawatts. The project for Onetta, the capacity project, if we tried to double the capacity contract there, 2.5 million is what that would cost us. So that's less than the 4.3. But right now, talking to our marketing partner, they're asking us all the time if we have excess capacity that we can put on the market because the prices are going up. And the market's out there for capacity. So when the Onetta capacity contract expires in 2030, the smart money says it will cost even more to double or renew that contract after 2030. So those are some of the numbers that we've been looking at as we've been pushing through this.
Our current, our current costs, are they locked in? Are they increasing every time the gas prices go up? Are we paying more?
Well, Onetta is a fixed contract, but it does escalate every year. There is an increase in the Onetta contract every year of the contract. For Nebraska City and Iatan and Dogwood as well, they have the ability to pass on the increased fuel costs as part of that, the fuel cost adjustment, just like we have with ours.
See, we're just talking about what, 70 plus another 56 million for finance costs. That's just for the machinery. That doesn't include the cost of the gas to operate that. So I would really like to see all of the numbers that you guys have used.
Well, and keep in mind, the gas costs are part of our price that we set when we offer it to SPP. So the fuel cost we recover.
Okay. I'd still like to look at everything.
Certainly.
Thank you.
So when you present, will you also talk about what you think your best guess operating costs would be for running the generators annually, so that you could do comparisons?
If that was part of the evaluation for the RFP.
And then the next question is, will people be able to attend remotely to this other than in person? Because we know that remote attendance is about 3 times what in person is.
Yes, I think the plan is that it will be streamed on the YouTube channel, and people they'll also have the ability to submit questions. They'll be in the flyer that's gone out to advertise the event. I think there's a information there on how they can actually submit questions remotely, submit questions in advance.
Hey Jim, I have that email address that we're getting those questions.
Okay.
We made a Facebook group for this. So if you guys want to ahead of time email questions to social media at indeptmo.org, we will collect them on top of in person. We are gathering questions though, instead of everyone getting a specific mic. So make sure that if you have specific questions you want, submit them ahead of time so that we can address them.
And what was that Facebook again?
So the Facebook, we have a Facebook event, but the social or the email is socialmedia@indeptmo.org. And then we have created, with the City of Independence's Facebook, a power generation town hall and open house event. It was just sent out the other day. There'll be continual other forms informing of the same information. But please go ahead and submit those so that we can see them ahead of time. It'd be helpful for us.
And so will the questions be made public in advance so that people know what sorts of questions you're going to get? And if you run out of time, will you also address those and make those available?
We we won't be publishing the questions ahead of time, but we will do a follow-up with any that we were not able to get to during the evening. We'll do a follow-up on those.
Yep. And myself and Meg are helping with communication materials to further explain some of these little nuances and details. So like just today I was working on a table for Jim and Joe, further explaining the different assets we currently have. So we're hoping to give you additional opportunity to see the information. It's same information, but just presented in a different light. And if you have any questions on the communication side, you can contact Meg Lewis or myself, Melissa Mokry.
All right. Any other questions? Mike Beal? Okay, thank you. All right, now we're down to board member comments. Any comments from any of the board members?
I do have a question for Mr. Nail. I have attended a couple of these town halls on this big project that they're thinking about going down the valley there. And I recall back a couple, maybe 3 meetings ago, when we were talking about how we can affect the rates of the ratepayers. And I think you said 6 big industrial projects would go a long way to affecting the rates. But I'd be interested to know what you think that this project may do. Would that project be enough to significantly affect the rate? I mean, that's $1 billion project they're talking about putting down there. And I would be interested to know what you think that would do to the load. You know, how would that project affect IDL?
It's really hard to estimate because they could get such a variety of clients in those facilities. And until they actually finish out a facility for a client, I mean, is this going to be just a warehouse or will it have some kind of industrial operations inside? Will there be significant, like a data center with significant power load there? We really don't know at this point. We are working with them and using some estimates from their previous projects to see what that might look like here. I don't have an estimate for you yet as to how much that would impact. I mean, one of the first things that we're going to have to figure out is in order to fully support that plan, we would need a new substation, and that's probably $8 to $10 million by itself. So we'd have to figure that into how to capture those costs plus support the development before we were able to look at other impacts.
Thank you.
Would that affect our SPP obligation if you add more industry and have more demand?
Yes, ma'am, it would.
And
As our load goes up, so does our capacity obligation.
And what's the lag on that? Do you have to provide that ahead of time, or do you?
We do an annual report to Southwest Power Pool of what our projected load is, and then that determines what our capacity obligation is.
And I had another question at the city council meeting. Some of the council members indicated that they would like to take this question to a vote, and I don't know enough about how that works. What's the timing on that? Who decides that?
Well, I mean, that would be up to the council if they decided to do that. I did talk to the city clerk. The earliest her estimate, the earliest you could have a public vote of a special election would be sometime in June. The cost of that is approximately, I think, about $100,000 to do a special election. So June would be the earliest.
But it would be more likely August with the regular vote?
I hope not.
Okay.
This quote expires April 30th. We've asked Pro Energy to give us a escalation factor of if this gets extended 3-4 months, what's that going to do to the quote? So they are working on that right now.
Mr. Chair, may I ask if we could have a couple of willing board members to work with IPL on the town halls so that we can at least hear about how they feel like the structure will be done. I don't want to take the time at the meeting to spend that, but if that's possible, to be able to make sure that good questions get asked and the structure works.
That's kind of up to IPL. I mean, it's their forum, but would you be willing to let a couple of the PUAB members assist?
Well, certainly all of the PUAB members are welcome to attend the town hall, and any recommendations or suggestions that you have ahead of time, send them to me. And like I said, we'll have the manufacturer's representative, the engineering consultant, as well as MPUA there to help us with answering the questions. Other than really don't know what questions we're going to get until we start seeing the questions come in. Our intention is not to spend a lot of time up front doing presentation, because that will take away from time we have to answer questions. So we'll do a very brief intro of who the different participants are, what the project is, and then jump right into answering questions and get through as many of the public questions as we can.
Is it possible to actually on the Facebook site publish your presentation from the city council meeting to kind of jumpstart that information gathering so people would be able to watch that ahead of time?
We can check on that.
Okay.
Certainly.
And I do want to make note, we are going to be putting out who the panelists are. Meg is going to be doing that, so you're aware of who's going to be there.
Having links to previous presentations would probably be a good way to get some of that information out. So thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Dan.
I text one of the question that Sherry Tyndall had asked about the lead and which homes we're looking for. It's 1983 to 1986. So if your home was built between 1983 and 1986 and you would like to reach out to us, we'd be glad to give you the materials to grab a sample of the water, and it'll help us add to our base. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Any other board member comments? I know I skipped over the upcoming items, the annual audit of the pilot meeting moved to the April meeting, and then IPL development of future generation, just updates ongoing. Okay, no other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I have that? Thanks.
I just wanted to plant a little seed for thought, I guess. I picked up from the city council meeting that there wasn't a tremendous amount of enthusiasm to jump in with both feet to this generation project. And I don't know if the word is fear. My fear is, or my concern is that they've led us on to think that they'll vote favorably when the vote comes down to actually make the purchase. And I have a feeling that might not happen. So what would happen after that is really, not necessarily, I don't need you to answer it this second, but you may. But I know that we all kind of need to be thinking about that. Thanks.
Well, certainly a no vote is a possibility. If the council rejects this proposal, then staff will go back and start looking at what's next. We'll keep working toward a solution, because the option to do nothing is not an option. There will have to be some decision made, whether it's to decide to put more money into the existing turbines, whether it's to pursue ownership in other sites, whether it's to pursue additional capacity contracts. Right now, we are at the amount of capacity we need. We have maybe just a few megawatts of cushion. That's it. So if there is any load growth, we've got to come up with a way to support that. Before we can retire, or in the event that we retire one or more of the combustion turbines, we have to have a plan to replace that capacity. So we will keep working on those options, and we'll present our recommendations until some decision is made.
Thank you.
Mr. Boatwright?
Yeah.
So some of the questions that I've been getting have been about, batteries come up by a couple of people, and certainly a lot of interest on demand side reduction and how the utility supports people doing a better job with solar panels, reducing their own footprint, how they manage purchasing or using energy at the times that are the best for the utility. Is there a point where you can present to the PUAB on what projects are available that the city supports? I know that lots of other utilities have done a very nice job of helping to incentivize people for reducing their own demand. Certainly anything we don't have to generate is the best answer for our costs. So I'd appreciate that presentation.
Sure, and we can certainly put some information together. For demand side management at the residential level, one of the most common ways of making that happen, incentivizing that, is to do what they call time of use rates. That's where if you shift all of your household chores to between midnight and 6 a.m., you run your dishwasher, run your laundry, if you shift your load, then there's a discount for those time periods. We will have to go to AMI first before we can do that, because that's how you get the data. We don't know. All we know right now is you used X amount from May 1st to May 31st. We have no way of knowing when you used it, what time of day you used it. So there's no way for us to assess that without going to AMI first. Some of the other things you mentioned, solar. Right now what we have right now is what we call a net metering, where if you install solar on your house or your property, we will subtract anything that it generates. We will subtract from what you owe us, and so that's you get the benefit of the reduced electric bill. There are some home efficiency rebates and appliance rebates and home improvement rebates that we assist with, but we can put together a flyer that has all that information.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions?
I don't remember if it was last meeting or the meeting prior. There was some questions about the bond refunding we're doing right now. And if Brian could give an update real quick to you all about where we are in that process and what to expect.
Yeah, thank you. Joe, would you like to give that?
You got this one.
So welcome aboard, Joe. We are working quite a bit on getting the official statements updated, which is basically the legal document that we present out to the potential bondholders. And since we had not done a debt issue here for predates all of us, it's been a challenge getting the wording updated and give the update of what's happened with rates, fund balance reserves, operations. You take the whole, what revenue and expenditures have done with COVID and everything. So it's a challenging story, and so we're taking a while to do that. But we're cautiously optimistic. We're still seeing a really good refunding. The rates have just jumped up recently, as you've probably noticed, but it's still as low as it's been if you look at it over a 2-year period of time. There are still good refundings. I think the latest I've seen is that it's $13 million, I think, in debt service over the life of it. So it is certainly good. We are finalizing the official statement. We're hoping to have our call with Standard & Poor's to talk about the rating, which always, again, gives some great feedback. And then hopefully have the sell soon after April 19th. So you'll see a agenda item on the city council's giving the staff what they call parameters ordinance, basically saying the staff has the authority to enter into this bond issue as long as the refunding amount is this and it doesn't exceed this. And then we go forward, and there'll be 2 readings on that, and then we'll go forward and try to price it. But cautiously optimistic. Hopefully the interest rates hold where they are right now. And then at the April PUAB meeting, we'll have some good news for you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by anybody? Our next meeting is April 21st. So I guess if you have anything between now and then, get a hold of me or one of the people that's been speaking if you have questions. Other than that, we'll stand adjourned at 3:16. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Man, your first meeting is a record short.